Welcome everyone. I'm SS Tradom. I study BCom Informatics. I'm currently studying towards my MIT in ICT Management. While studying, I was an assistant lecturer at the university for 2 years. And in those 2 years, I gave a module called Systems Design and Analysis. And part of that is to look at different methods of requirements gathering. So while doing that, it really stuck with me in how you can get the correct requirements from your projects. And that's why I decided to use this as my talk for today. So first off, I've got a bit of an experiment here, or a bit of a thought exercise. So you've got 9 dots here. I want you to just think of connecting all 9 dots using 4 straight lines for connecting straight lines, right? So essentially, you usually see solutions to this similar to something like that or along those lines, right? But there's always one circle that cannot connect. So why don't we think about something along the lines of this, right? So if you look at this one, you can see that we're just outside of the box. So this is a very, very simple way to just say, when thinking of certain things, you need to think outside of the box, right? So why am I saying all this? Well, when we look at requirements gathering, specifically also here with our IT, we work with clients. Mostly we work with clients, right? And clients, while they know what they want, they don't always know what they need, right? And they don't always know how it can be created. So to follow up on that, while we have maybe a core set of requirements to start off with, requirements can evolve over time. So you might want project or product A, and as you're working through it, you might realize, no, but it's more like product A.5, right? So that's also something that we need to keep in mind when we gather requirements. And these days, we also include a lot of AI in these things, apparently. So fun times. So what do clients think happen? So in expectation, they think you go to them, they ask you for a very specific product. Then you take it into your black box with all of your devs and all of the different stakeholders. You design the product and you give them exactly what they want. 100%, no problems. There we go, shop. However, this is not always the case. So what will happen is you can go into your black box and a lot happens. There's a lot of backwards and forwards, ups and downs. And a lot of the times you get something similar, but not quite right. So this is very important in terms of how we can fix it to make sure that we get scenario A, not scenario B. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing that I want to say is we have to start early. So the earlier you can get going, just getting an understanding of the project and items like that, the more opportunity you have to properly understand the project even before we get to the actual design stages, right? So this is where we can get the project baseline and work from there, okay? Requirements gathering can be thrilling, right? A bit maddening sometimes though, but it's good. It's an exciting time in a project. Then once we start early enough, hopefully, we get to a point where we need to decide what the scope is of the project that we're working on and what the client will need, right? A lot of the times we can have a lot of different features that we want this and this and this and this, and of all the features, 90% of them never get used, right? So we need to make sure to understand what the product features will be and stick to those. Then importantly, we need to make sure to set goals of the project. What do we want from this project? So a lot of the time I've been asked the difference between why do we set goals and not just objectives of the project, right? So goals usually are based off the objectives are usually based off the goals of a project, right? So goals are a big overarching idea of what we want to achieve with the project, and the objectives is what are we going to do to achieve the goal overall, right? So if we only set objectives, you end up you lead the risk of solving a very specific solution or solving a very specific problem, and then it ends up being a short-term solution and not looking at the larger problem, right? So that's the importance of setting goals and not only objectives. Then once we have those goals and objectives, we need to look at functional and non-functional requirements, right? So especially with clients, they love to just look at exactly what the system needs to do. What does the system need to do? We need this feature, this feature, this feature, which are usually your functional requirements. And then we tend to forget about the non-functional requirements in a little bit, right? So I like to use the example here of a car. So the car needs to be able to drive with 4 wheels, right? We're super excited. We do everything. We implement the car driving on its 4 wheels, but we never discussed what the type of material the car's wheel should be about or should consist of, right? And then we might sometimes end up with a bit of a, why is this not working? A bit of a problem. There we go. So we always need to make sure to not only look at functional requirements, but make sure to look at your non-functional requirements as well. Then we need to make sure to always keep in mind your budget and your timeline, right? So unfortunately, you can't just design anything unlimitedly. There's different constraints that we have to work with. And for that, I like to use my trusty triangle. So for the BAs or the people that have worked in project before, you've probably seen this. But essentially, your solution usually consists within this triangle. So you've got your cost, time, and scope. So when scope creep comes in and the scope increases, you need to make sure your stakeholders understand that if we don't change the other dimensions of our trusty triangle, the quality might go down, or vice versa, etc. Right? So now that we understand these projects, I'm going to move over to something. So depending on your work, I like to say that different people have different toolboxes. So if you're on construction workers, you have all of your big tools and all of that. But as a person that works in these projects, I like to have a kind of toolbox ready for you. So first off is when we look at a project, you have to look at your stakeholders. So I like to think of stakeholders as a group of people around the table. You at your dinner, right? So you've got your grandparents, your parents, your younger siblings, older siblings, cousins, etc., etc. All of them have different goals, needs for this dinner, for example, right? So you need to make sure to understand who your stakeholders are, what they want, and who this project, for who this project will be at the end of the day, right? Then you have your project definition. So to just go back, make sure you understand the project so that you know what you're working with. If you know and understand the project, delivering will become easier. Then you have your different elicitation techniques. So you need to understand which stakeholder will benefit from which elicitation techniques the best. So where a formal interview will work better, you'll maybe struggle with something like a workshop or a survey or something like that, right? So you need to understand when to use which elicitation techniques. Then something that not everyone always loves but is necessary is documentation. So you need to understand and know to which degree of documentation you would need for your project. Not all projects need 10 million pages of documentation. So you need to understand the level of documentation you would need for a project. Then very importantly, we have to look at being transparent when we work on projects. So you need to make sure that the correct stakeholders know of certain items or certain things regarding the project as you move on, right? So that is something that you need to keep in mind and not kind of do things without making sure that people are aware of what's happening. And then something that often gets missed is you need to prioritize the needs based on what the project needs to do. So if you have a project that has been instantiated by, let's say, higher up management, and they don't understand the actual needs of the project, of the clients or of their employees, you might have a problem. So you need to make sure to engage with all your stakeholders to make sure that you understand what the best solution would be for each of these specific stakeholders. Okay. So now that we have our toolbox, I'm going to move over to something a bit interesting. I want you to think of a role of someone like me who's currently a BA in projects, and I like to use this example of a chameleon. And now it's not working again. There we go, a chameleon, right? So first off, chameleons are very flexible in the sense that they are very adjustable, right? So they can blend in with any environment regardless of the situation, which means that they are good at adapting to this situation, right? So we as BAs also wear many hats, so make sure that you know who and where you work with in that environment. Then we look at communication and with color. So chameleons, like you guys have probably seen a lot, can be very colorful depending on the environment. So with this, I'm basically just saying, make sure that you know how to communicate. Communication is always key with projects like this, right? So with this, I'm not saying you are allowed to use colorful language, but make sure that you know how to communicate with the correct people. Then chameleons are known for their incredible 360 view. So chameleons can see all around them with their crazy eyes. I decided just to use some very interesting because I like dogs. So don't blame me. But with this, what I want to emphasize is that as a BA, you need to understand that you need to look at problems from a different viewpoint and from multiple viewpoints. And with this, you are able to see threats, hopefully a bit earlier, and more opportunities, right? That's a very big thing that can give you the edge above other people and other projects. Another interesting thing about chameleons is they come in all shapes and sizes, right? So it's not always about the size of you as a BA, but the essence, right? So no matter your skill or how experienced you are, you need to make sure to start off with the basics and use your knowledge as you've gained it to make better decisions, right? There's some core principles that you can implement to make sure that you get efficient output. Then chameleons are known for a very strategic approach to problem solving. So they use a wide load of strategies to hunt and evade predators. Similarly, as a BA, you need to understand how to solve problems effectively and work with your problem solving skills. Then we have flexibility in the face of adversity. So chameleons are excellent at shows of resilience with their difficult environments. Similarly, BAs have a lot of obstacles in their projects, and they have to know how to manage these difficult problems and overcome different scenarios with stakeholders. And then lastly here, I have that chameleons go through a lot of stages. Similarly, a BA needs to understand how to move through these different transitions within a project. So projects move between a lot of different scenarios, and you need to understand how to optimally function in each of these. So in conclusion, I want you to think outside of the box, use your toolbox, and just be a chameleon. Thank you.